Captain Elias had seen many worlds in his years of exploration. He had walked on planets with frozen oceans, fought through storms that could strip flesh from bone, and witnessed civilizations rise and fall. But none of that had prepared him for the moment he stepped onto this alien world. The sky was a soft lavender, stretching endlessly above towering emerald forests that shimmered under the strange sunlight. The air was thick with life, soft hums, distant calls, and the whisper of trees that seemed almost alive. Every step he took felt both familiar and alien, like he was walking in a dream that had somehow become real. He had come expecting hostility. Intelligence reports had warned him that this planet harbored an advanced civilization led by a queen whose power and influence extended across entire star systems. But as he moved deeper into the forest, his weapon lowered slightly, sensing that something was different here. The world was alive, yes, but not with aggression. It pulsed with curiosity. Then he saw her, the queen. She emerged from between the glowing trunks of enormous trees, moving with a grace that was almost impossible to describe. Her height was intimidating, her form elegant, and her skin glimmered like polished silver under the lavender light. Her eyes, large and luminous, seemed to see through him, through every doubt, every fear, every hidden corner of his mind. Elias swallowed, trying to maintain the composure that had served him so many times in battle. He was a human, small and fragile compared to the beings of this world, yet there was something about her gaze that did not terrify him. Instead, it sparked a strange, unfamiliar warmth. "You are human," she said, her voice soft and melodic, yet carrying authority. It was translated through the device on his wrist, but the sound seemed to linger in the air like a gentle song. "Yes," he replied carefully, his hand resting near the hilt of his weapon out of habit. "I come in peace. I mean no harm." The queen studied him, tilting her head slightly, as if weighing his essence rather than his words. She was silent for a long moment, and in that silence Elias felt the weight of her judgment, not cruel, not hostile, but deliberate and knowing. Then, without warning, a small figure darted through the glowing underbrush. Elias almost stumbled back in surprise. The child was unlike anything he had ever seen. His skin shimmered with a golden hue, eyes wide and trusting, and tiny hands reaching eagerly toward Elias. There was no fear in the child's movement, no hesitation. Only joy, only recognition. The queen smiled softly, a rare expression that lit up her features in a way that human emotions could only faintly capture. "He has chosen you as his father," she said, her voice almost a whisper, yet it carried weight that settled deep in Elias' chest. Elias froze, his mind raced. A child, alien yet strangely familiar in its innocence, was choosing him. He felt a surge of emotions he could not name, awe, fear, responsibility, and an unexpected warmth that curled like fire through his chest. He knelt slowly, meeting the child's gaze. The little being laughed, a sound like wind chimes carried on a breeze. Elias' heart skipped. He had never known such a pure form of trust, such immediate and complete acceptance. For the first time in his life, he realized that this world, strange as it was, offered something that no battlefield or mission ever could: connection, belonging, family. The queen watched silently, her smile steady. Her eyes seemed to say, "This is the choice that matters most." The forest around them buzzed softly, as if the trees themselves had paused to witness the moment. Elias extended a hand slowly, unsure if the child would take it, unsure if he was ready to accept the bond forming in that instant. The child did not hesitate. He ran straight into Elias' arms, wrapping tiny arms around his neck. The warmth of the embrace was sudden, overwhelming, and somehow grounding. In that moment, under the lavender sky and among the shimmering trees, Captain Elias understood something profound. He was not just a visitor on this alien planet. He was no longer a soldier, no longer a stranger. He had been chosen, and in return, he had chosen to accept it. For the first time in a long time, he felt truly human, not because of his strength or his skills, but because of the love forming between him and this small, shining child. And so, in the quiet of the forest, beneath alien stars and beside the smiling queen, a bond was born that would change both of their lives forever. Elias woke to the soft glow of twin suns peeking through the tall alien trees. The air smelled sweet, like a mixture of unknown flowers and the crisp tang of the forest. The child who had chosen him was already awake, crawling toward him with small, hurried steps. His laughter rang out like chimes in the morning breeze, and Elias felt an unfamiliar warmth rising in his chest. He had faced countless battles and life-or-death missions, but nothing had ever touched him like this small being's trust. "Good morning," he said softly, bending to meet the child's eager gaze. The little one's eyes sparkled, and he reached for Elias' hand. "Good morning, Father," he replied, his voice lilting and strange, yet somehow entirely understandable through the translator embedded in Elias' suit. The word father struck Elias like a lightning bolt. He had never imagined being called that, and yet hearing it made his heart tighten and expand all at once. They walked through the forest together, Elias following small, unpredictable path. The child ran with fearless joy, climbing rocks and leaping over roots, while Elias stumbled behind, marveling at how agile and fearless he was. His laughter filled the air, and every echo seemed to ripple through the trees, as if the forest itself was welcoming their bond. The queen followed silently, her presence calm and dignified, yet always close. Elias noticed the way she watched him, her eyes like silver mirrors reflecting not only observation but expectation. She said little, but her subtle nods and quiet smiles reassured him. He wasn't just surviving this alien world. He was becoming part of it, guided by a child's fearless trust and a queen's careful oversight. As they reached a crystal-clear stream, knelt and splashed the water toward Elias, giggling uncontrollably. Elias laughed in return, feeling a lightness in his chest he hadn't felt in years. This world, which had seemed so strange and threatening at first, now felt alive with possibility. He realized that this child had taught him something he had forgotten. Life was not only about survival, it was about connection, laughter, and the courage to care. But the bond was not without challenges. The alien physiology of was fragile, and his energy sometimes surged uncontrollably. Elias had to learn quickly how to keep the child safe without stifling his natural spirit. One moment, his eyes glowed with bright golden light as his small hands sparked with unrestrained energy. Elias instinctively grabbed him, holding the child tight, focusing on calm words and steady breathing. Slowly, the glow faded and sank into his arms, exhausted but smiling. "You see, Father," the queen's voice came softly from behind. "He tests you because he trusts you. He knows you will not let him fall." Elias looked at who was now leaning against him, breathing heavily but smiling faintly. "I will protect you," he whispered. "Always." He meant it with every fiber of his being. In that moment, he understood that being chosen as a father was not a title. It was a promise, a responsibility, and a privilege. As the sun rose higher, painting the sky with hues of gold and lavender, Elias guided back toward the palace. They passed through corridors alive with alien architecture, curving walls that seemed to flow like liquid, floors that hummed with energy beneath their steps. Every alien glance and gesture seemed to measure him, yet none questioned the bond forming before them. Even the queen's guards, stoic and disciplined, softened when reached for Elias' hand, and their eyes flickered with respect. That evening, as slept curled against his chest, Elias sat quietly in the palace gardens, staring at the alien stars above. He had faced countless battles in his life, but nothing had demanded courage, patience, and compassion as much as this small being had chosen him not for strength or weapons or cunning, but for the one thing humans could offer that aliens rarely understood: heart. Elias realized then that this child was not only changing his life, he was changing him. Every laugh, every touch, every word of trust was a lesson in humanity, a reminder that courage and love were intertwined. And under the alien sky, with a child's trust warming his heart and the queen watching with quiet approval, Elias understood that he had found something far greater than victory or honor. He had found purpose. He had found family. And so in that quiet, glowing world, the first real bond between human and alien child was cemented, a bond that would grow, deepen, and face challenges the galaxy itself could not have predicted. The palace was alive with whispers that day. Alien voices, soft yet sharp, floated through the grand halls like wind through chimes. Elias could feel their eyes on him, curious, skeptical, even suspicious. The council, composed of beings whose authority spanned generations, had gathered to observe the child he had been chosen to protect. Their gazes were sharp, assessing, weighing him not just as a human, but as someone entrusted with the life of their heir. Elias had sensed doubt from the moment he arrived, but he had hoped that choice would be enough. It was not. The council murmured about human fragility, about weaknesses that could endanger, about the impossibility of a human keeping pace with alien powers. One counselor, tall and angular, stepped forward, his voice cold and precise. "You are not of our world. How can we trust that you will survive the dangers our child faces? How can a human protect him?" Elias stood taller, his jaw firm. He was far from defenseless. He had survived battles on worlds that had swallowed entire fleets. Yet he did not rely solely on strength. "I may be human," he said calmly, "but I will learn, adapt, and face every threat alongside him. You have not yet seen the limits of human resolve." His voice carried through the chamber, steady and unwavering, and for a moment the murmurs fell silent. That moment of judgment would come sooner than anyone expected. As the council watched, a sudden commotion erupted near the palace gates. From the dense forests surrounding the city, predators, massive creatures with chitinous exoskeletons and glowing eyes, emerged, drawn by the scent of energy. The palace guards froze, unprepared for the creature's speed. Small hands began to glow with a golden light, the child's powers surging with instinctive fear. Without hesitation, Elias moved. He placed himself between and the advancing predators, his human reflexes honed by years of survival kicking in. The first creature lunged, snapping its jagged mandibles, and Elias rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a lethal strike. He grabbed a fallen branch, swinging it with precise strength, using strategy rather than brute force. One by one, he redirected the creatures, protecting while keeping the child's energy from spiraling out of control. Its glow brightened, matching the intensity of Elias' focus. It was as if the child's powers resonated with his determination, amplifying the bond they shared. The council watched in stunned silence, unable to deny what they were witnessing. A human, small by alien standards, moving with courage, skill, and instinct to safeguard a being far beyond his species. When the last predator was driven back into the forest, Elias fell to his knees, exhausted but unbroken. Ran to him, collapsing into his arms without a word. The child's energy dimmed as he leaned against him, a sigh of relief that matched Elias' own heartbeat. The queen stepped forward, her presence serene yet powerful. "He knew," she said softly, placing her hand on Elias' shoulder. "He knew you would not falter. This is why he chose you." Her words carried weight, echoing through the chamber in a way no argument from the council could counter. Elias looked down at, who blinked up at him with trust and admiration. That gaze was stronger than any decree, stronger than any challenge. For the first time, Elias felt the full depth of his role, not just as a protector, but as a father. Strength was only part of it. Patience, love, courage, and unwavering resolve mattered just as much. The council's doubts were still there, simmering beneath the surface, but Elias no longer feared judgment. His choice had been made, and nothing, not fear, not skepticism, not danger, could undo it. As the sun dipped low, casting the forest in golden shadows, Elias carried back toward the palace. Each step felt lighter even after the chaos, because he now knew the truth of something he had only felt in fragments before. Human courage, human love, and human heart could stand against even the most alien of odds. And beneath the alien sky, amid the shimmering trees, Elias realized that this challenge had only strengthened the bond forming between him and the child. In the face of danger and the weight of expectation, the human had proven what he had always known in his soul. He would do anything to protect the one who had chosen him, and in that choice he had found something far greater than victory. He had found purpose. He had found family. Life in the palace had changed for Elias in ways he could never have imagined. Every morning, he awoke not to alarms or battle reports, but to the sound of laughter echoing through the halls. The child's energy was boundless, his curiosity unstoppable. Small hands tugged at Elias' sleeve, urging him to follow, to explore, to play. Elias quickly learned that a human's strength mattered less here than patience, adaptability, and the ability to respond to the unexpected. Led him through corridors lined with flowing, luminous walls that pulsed gently with alien energy. They wandered into gardens where plants sang with strange melodies, their colors shifting with every step. Elias marveled at the world around him, but more than that, he marveled at its courage. The child approached everything without fear, sometimes too quickly, sometimes recklessly, but always with joy and wonder. One afternoon decided to climb one of the tallest crystal trees in the garden. Elias' heart jumped into his throat as he watched the child scramble upward with astonishing agility. Without thinking, he ran after him, calling out, "Be careful!" But the child merely looked down, eyes sparkling with mischief and trust. "I can do it, father," he shouted. Elias reached him just as the small hand slipped slightly. He caught the child effortlessly, holding him close. The moment their eyes met, laughed, resting his head against Elias' shoulder. "You always save me," said softly, a hint of pride in his voice. "And I always will," Elias replied, feeling the weight and warmth of the words. In that instant, he realized that parenting was not about control. It was about trust, guidance, and being present. Had chosen him not just as protector, but as someone to share in every triumph, every misstep, every discovery. Evenings were quieter, spent in the palace gardens under the glow of the twin moons. Elias would sit with curled against his chest, listening to the child's questions about the stars, about the plants, about the strange creatures that roamed the forests. He answered with honesty and care, sometimes admitting he did not know, sometimes sharing stories of Earth and the humans he had left behind. Eyes widened with wonder, absorbing every word, every gesture, every touch. The queen often observed them from a distance, her gaze soft but ever watchful. She did not interfere. She understood that the bond had to grow naturally through trust and shared experience. Once she approached silently and placed a hand on Elia's shoulder. "You are learning," she said quietly. "He trusts you because he knows you care, not because of strength or skill. That is what makes you human." Elias felt a swell of emotion he could not name. Courage, yes, but something deeper, a sense of belonging he had never known. He realized that being's father was not a temporary role or a duty. It was a journey, one that demanded his heart as much as his mind. Days turned into weeks, and the palace began to feel like home. His laughter became the rhythm of Elia's life, guiding him, grounding him. He discovered joy in the smallest moments. A hand held too tightly, a mischievous grin, a whispered, "I love you" in the quiet night. Even the alien council, once skeptical, began to notice the child's calmness and confidence in Elia's presence. Slowly, respect grew where doubt had lingered. One night, as slept against his chest, Elias looked at the sky, painted in alien hues of purple and gold. He understood then that the true power of humanity was not in weapons, strength, or strategy. It was in love, patience, and trust. The child had chosen him not because he was perfect, but because he cared deeply, because he would endure challenges, because he would grow alongside him. Elias felt a warmth spread through his chest, a certainty that he had never felt before. The forest, the palace, the stars above, they all felt alive with possibility. And at the center of it all, he held the child who had chosen him, the child who was teaching him what it truly meant to be human. In that quiet, glowing world, Elias realized that parenting was a battle unlike any other. But it was a battle he would fight with every part of his being because this small, radiant being had already conquered his heart. And in return, Elias would give him everything he had, courage, guidance, and a love that would never waver. Life in the palace had grown peaceful, but Elias knew that peace was fragile. The council's whispers had not vanished. They lingered like shadows in the corridors. Some still questioned a human's place beside, suggesting that the child's survival required only the guidance of his own kind. Others hinted at darker intentions, secrets hidden beneath the gleaming palace floors, traps meant to test his loyalty. Elias felt their scrutiny in every glance, every hushed conversation, and yet he refused to be intimidated. One evening had fallen asleep in his arms after an exhausting day of exploring the palace gardens. Elias' mind wandered to the council's doubts, and he realized that love alone might not be enough. He needed to prove that a human could match alien cunning, that courage and instinct could stand alongside power no matter the form it took. It was then that he noticed the strange glow emanating from the floor beneath the council chamber. Intrigued and wary, he followed it through the hidden passageways of the palace, careful to avoid detection. The air grew colder as he descended, and a faint hum vibrated through the walls, a sound that hinted at both danger and ancient power. At the end of the tunnel, Elias found a chamber unlike any he had ever seen. It pulsed with energy, etched with sigils that glowed in rhythmic patterns, and at its center was a trap. A device meant to sever the bond between him and designed to confuse the child and lure him away. Elia's heart raced. The council had underestimated him, assuming a human could not understand alien mechanisms. But he had trained his mind for puzzles and threats far beyond the ordinary. Kneeling, he examined the trap carefully, tracing the flow of energy with his hands, feeling the pulse of the machinery. Step by step, he dismantled it, using logic, intuition, and sheer determination. He knew trust depended on his success. One mistake, one miscalculation could shatter everything. When the device finally powered down, Elias exhaled, relief mingling with pride. He had done more than survive a challenge. He had protected the child from a danger even the council had not expected. Yet he could not linger, was alone upstairs, unaware of the peril he had just avoided. He returned swiftly, finding the child waiting by the grand staircase, eyes wide with curiosity. Ran into his arms immediately, unafraid, as if he sensed Elia's presence and the calm assurance it carried. "Father, where were you?" he asked, his small hands gripping Elia's tunic. "I was making sure you were safe," Elias replied, holding him close. The words felt heavier than usual, imbued with the weight of experience and responsibility. Trust was absolute, and it was both a gift and a challenge. Elias understood then that protecting him would not always be about strength. It would be about foresight, courage, and the willingness to face dangers the child could not even imagine. From the shadows, the queen observed silently, her silver eyes reflecting pride and relief. "He knew," she whispered, as if speaking to herself and Elias both. "He knew you would endure what others could not. That is why he chose you." Her smile, calm and radiant, filled the hall with warmth. Elias kissed the top of his head, feeling the child's steady heartbeat against his chest. In that moment, he understood something fundamental. Being chosen as a father was not a simple honor. It was a constant battle, a test of courage, wisdom, and love. The challenges would come again in forms he could not predict, from forces he could not always see. But one thing was certain: nothing could break the bond that had formed between them. As the twin moons rose over the palace, casting gentle silver light across the gardens, Elias carried back to their quarters. Every step resonated with purpose, every heartbeat with determination. He knew the council's doubts would not vanish overnight, and new dangers would inevitably arise. Yet he was ready. He had learned the strength of trust, the power of courage, and the depth of love that could make even a human stand equal to the most ancient and powerful alien forces. And as drifted to sleep in his arms, Elias whispered softly, "No matter what comes, I will protect you. Always." For the first time, he realized that being a father was not about authority. It was about being present, unyielding, and willing to face the universe itself to keep the child safe. And in that quiet palace under alien stars, a human heart proved its power in the most extraordinary way. The day of ceremonial rite arrived with a sky painted in shades of gold and violet, twin suns casting long, dancing shadows across the palace grounds. The entire council and the citizens of the alien world gathered, their eyes fixed on the child who held the future of their lineage. Elias stood slightly behind, watching with a mixture of pride and tension. Every step of the ceremony was symbolic, every gesture deliberate, and the council's scrutiny was sharper than ever. Stood at the center of the ceremonial circle, his small frame glowing faintly with the golden energy that marked his heritage. The air hummed with anticipation, a vibration that made Elias' chest tighten. He knew that today was more than ritual. It was the moment when the child would choose who would guide, protect, and nurture him officially. Every eye seemed to pierce through Elias, measuring whether a human could truly stand alongside this child, whether a bond forged in love could survive the weight of tradition and expectation. As the ceremony began, the council spoke of lineage, power, and responsibility. Alien phrases rolled through the air like music, their meanings clear yet heavy with history. Elias listened carefully, feeling the weight of their words but holding himself steady. He did not speak, there was no need. The choice was not theirs, the choice belonged to. His glowing eyes scanned the circle, finally resting on Elias. The child's small hand reached out instinctively, trembling slightly yet unwavering. The golden energy flared, brighter than it had ever been, as though echoing the child's certainty. Elias' heart hammered. He had trained, fought, and endured countless dangers, but nothing prepared him for this quiet, powerful moment when trust and love alone would determine the future. Without hesitation, ran to him, the glow surrounding him intensifying, and placed his tiny hand in Elias. The crowd fell silent. Gasps echoed across the assembly as the child's energy intertwined with Elias' presence, a clear and undeniable declaration. The human had been chosen. Elias felt warmth flooding through him, a mix of relief, awe, and pure, unguarded emotion. He knelt to meet's gaze, his hands enveloping the child with care and protection. The queen approached, her silver eyes shining with pride and something deeper, approval, trust, and quiet happiness. She placed her hand lightly on Elia's shoulder. "He has chosen wisely," she whispered. "He knows your heart." Her words felt like a blessing, a quiet acknowledgement that what had been forged in private was now recognized openly. The council could no longer argue. His choice was absolute. Elias had proven himself in ways their traditions could not measure, through courage, compassion, patience, and love. The murmurs of dissent faded, replaced by awe and respect. Even the most skeptical counselors bowed slightly, acknowledging the bond that had been made, a bond stronger than protocol, politics, or power. As the ceremony concluded, clung to Elias, eyes shining with joy and energy. "Father," he said softly, and Elias felt his heart nearly burst. The word was no longer just a title. It was a declaration, a promise, and the foundation of a family that worlds and species. That evening the palace seemed softer, gentler, as though the walls themselves celebrated the union of human and child. They walked through the gardens hand in hand, small fingers gripping Elias tightly, while the queen followed silently, her presence comforting and proud. Every step felt sacred, every breath shared a quiet testament to the trust and love that had blossomed in the most unlikely of places. Elias knew that challenges would come again. The galaxy was full of danger, and not everyone would accept their bond. But in that moment, under the twin moons and the alien stars, he realized that no obstacle could sever the connection between him and the child who had chosen him. His trust was absolute, and his own determination now matched it completely. As they stood together, watching the sky deepen into shades of violet and silver, Elias whispered, "I will always protect you, always." The child smiled, resting his head against Elias' chest, and for the first time the human felt not just chosen, but complete. He was a father, a protector, and above all, part of a family that transcended worlds, a bond that no challenge could ever break. The palace had never felt quieter or more alive at the same time. Slept peacefully in Elias' arms, his small chest rising and falling with each steady breath. The golden glow of the child's energy pulsed faintly, a soft reminder of the extraordinary being who had chosen him. Elias held him gently, staring out through the palace windows at the lavender forest stretching endlessly under the twin moons. He felt an overwhelming mix of awe, gratitude, and love, the kind of emotions that no battle, no victory could ever match. The queen entered silently, her silver eyes reflecting the moonlight. She moved with elegance, her presence commanding but gentle, like a quiet force that reassured rather than intimidated. She knelt beside Elias, placing her hand lightly on his shoulder. "You have proven yourself human," she said softly, her voice carrying warmth. "Not through strength alone, but through patience, courage, and the love that has grown between you and him. He is safe because he chose wisely." Elias looked down at whose small hands had curled around his neck even in sleep. "I didn't just protect him," Elias whispered. He saved me too. He made me human in ways I never understood before." The queen nodded, her expression serene, as if she understood every word without needing explanation. Days passed, and life slowly settled into a rhythm. Elias discovered the small joys of parenting, guiding through alien customs, sharing stories of Earth, and teaching him both courage and kindness. The palace, once a place of strict protocol and cold authority, had transformed into a home filled with laughter, learning, and discovery. Even the alien council, once skeptical and wary, began to show respect, noticing House energy was calmer, brighter, and more confident with Elias by his side. One afternoon, ran ahead of Elias into the crystal gardens, laughing as his small form bounced between glowing plants. Elias followed, running slower, letting the child lead, letting trust guide their steps. He marveled at how his fearlessness seemed endless, how his joy was contagious, and how, despite the differences between their worlds, the bond they shared was stronger than anything else he had ever known. The queen observed from the palace steps, her smile faint but unmistakable. She knew that a new family had formed, one that would challenge expectations, transcend species, and embody a truth the universe often overlooked. The heart's courage, compassion, and love were the most powerful forces in existence. As the twin moons rose high, casting silver light across the palace and forests, Elias knelt beside, who had paused to gaze at the glowing sky. "Do you know what makes you special?" he asked gently. The child shook his head, eyes wide. "It's not just your powers or your place in this world," Elias continued. "It's your heart, your trust, and the way you let others, me, your family, share your life with you. That is why you are extraordinary." Smiled, leaning against Elias, feeling safe and loved in a way only a child could. "And you are my father," he said simply, his words full of certainty and warmth. Elias' chest tightened with emotion. It was more than a title now. It was a bond forged through trust, courage, and countless shared moments. He realized that heroism was not only about fighting enemies or surviving dangers. It was about love, loyalty, and protecting those who had placed their hearts in your hands. The queen approached, standing beside them as the forest shimmered under alien stars. "This is your family," she said softly, acknowledging both the human and the child, the bond that no tradition or danger could sever. "Together you will shape the future of this world, not through fear or power, but through courage, trust, and love." Elias held close, feeling the steady warmth of the child against his chest. He whispered, "I will always protect you, always." The child smiled, resting his head against Elias' shoulder, and for the first time, Elias understood the full meaning of home, family, and purpose. In that moment, under the alien sky, a human had proven that heart, courage, and love could stand equal to the most ancient and powerful forces of the universe. A bond had been forged that no threat could break. A family had been created that transcended worlds. And Elias, once a stranger on this distant planet, had become something greater than a soldier, greater than a protector. He had become a father. And as the twin moons cast their gentle glow over the palace and forests, Elias and the queen stood together, united, unbroken, and ready to face whatever the universe would bring, together.